Hey guys, it's Jeff Chan from MMA Shredded, and in this video I'll be teaching 7 tactics on how to fight shorter opponents. So generally, your shorter opponent will want to close that distance on you and attack from the inside. What you are about to learn can definitely increase your chances of winning, but at the end of the day, if your opponent is more skilled than you, chances are they will still find a way to beat you. As you can see in these clips against shorter but more skilled opponents like UFC Bantamweight Rob Font, UFC Flyweight Alex Perez, and PFL Bantamweight Xavier Aloui, although I tried to execute all the tactics I am about to teach you, they were still able to close the distance and fight in my pocket. So tactic 1 is to do the opposite of what your opponent wants to do, which is to keep the distance as the taller fighter and pick apart your shorter opponent from the outside. The best way to keep that distance is by using your long guard and using fast footwork to move back and circling away. If you can maintain the distance, you will have the advantage because with your longer arms and legs, you should be able to reach your shorter opponent while they cannot reach you. Footwork is the most important thing here. With good footwork, you technically don't need your hands up. The long guard is just a tool to help you keep your distance using footwork. Tactic 2, carriage blocking and immediately firing back with a cross. We want to assume that if we are up against anyone good, they will eventually be able to close that distance and hit you from close range. Common attacks thrown by short fighters in close range usually end with body hooks and head hooks. It doesn't matter if I am blocking the left head hook or the hook to the liver, I will fire back with that same right hand. So I'm going to be ready to carriage block those hooks and fire back with the same side punch. Common combinations thrown in the pocket are the jab to the body followed by a lead head hook, or the liver hook to the lead head hook, and sometimes the rear uppercut to the lead head hook. Here are some failed attempts. Tactic 3, the inside foot sweep. The inside foot sweep is most effective in close range because the technique itself requires you to hook your opponent's lower calf with your shin. If I find my opponent in my pocket and I'm shelling up trying to defend, I'll try to time an inside foot sweep because not only do I know they are shifting all their weight to their front leg to punch, allowing me to sweep, they're close enough because they are throwing a circular punch. If my opponent is significantly shorter than me, then I will try to time it off a jab because my shin may still reach their calf without their punch reaching my face. This sweep does not work if your opponent lifts their lead leg up or if they keep their weight on their rear leg. Whether the sweep succeeds or not, I will usually try to follow up with a cross. And here are some failed attempts. Tactic 4. Another option I love doing when my opponent gets into my pocket is to frame with my lead arm and push myself away from my opponent and into my cross. You can see that in most of these scenarios, my opponent is trying to change levels and step in my pocket, trying to get their lead shoulder into my armpit, so I retract my lead arm to frame. In the following 3 examples, my opponents were not shorter, but I just want to use these clips as they are great examples of them using head movement to get into my pocket. And I retracted my jabbing arm to frame to create space before punching. This opponent tried to bob and weave into my pocket, and I used the same frame into the cross. Now sometimes you might get tied up with your opponent, and if you can swim your arm to your opponent's neck, you can do the same and frame and into the cross. The frame in general is a great way to create space to strike, and I'll use it all the time against opponents of all heights. I'll be teaching the intercepting long knee in tactic 6, and I'll go into more details later in the video, but after throwing a long knee, I often find myself jammed up with my opponent, so I'll also use this frame to create space and throw my cross. And here are some failed attempts. Now, before we continue, I'd like to share with you my 80 shadowboxing technique and conditioning program. There are 80 shadowboxing workouts that are broken down into 5 categories. Number 1, boxing offensive combinations. 2, footwork and head movement. 3, offensive Muay Thai combinations. 4, Muay Thai counters and counter the counters. And finally 5, a category I call shadowboxing challenges, which are long, exaggerated, and super fun combinations that test your flow, fluidity, and rhythm in your striking, as well as your cardio, skill, and memory. Each workout includes a detailed breakdown followed by the follow-along workout in both video and audio format. You will learn my full striking system from every technique to every combo, feint, fake, setup, or counter you need to know. You can do these workouts at home, at a gym, a hotel, a park, literally anywhere, anytime. For more information, check out the link in the description box below. Tactic 5. Throw lots of jabs and counter the counter. We want to pop out those jabs, whether that's stepping in from the outside or staying stationary and throwing it as our opponent moves forward at us. And we can also step to the side and circle out as we jab. We can also do the same with our cross. Our straight punches are our longest punches, so again, it helps us measure how far we are from our opponent. After throwing the cross, I like to continue throwing lots of jabs, not only to let the damage from several jabs accumulate and rack up points, but to make sure that our opponent is always at the end of our jab to help us maintain the distance. Our shorter opponent will likely start defending these punches and into a big left or right punch. So we want to be ready for that punch and parry to defend and into our counter punches. If the right hand comes, I like to cross parry into my check left hook. You can also shoulder roll. Because we are taller, shoulder rolling usually does the trick to evade. Although the check left hook is more effective against the right hand, it also works against the jab, or in this case, the left straight punch / cross from southpaw stance. If a left hook comes, on the other hand, I like to pull back, making them just miss, and throw my cross. Whether you land that counter or not, it will usually cause your opponent to hesitate a bit when moving forward. A counter just makes your opponent respect your space a little bit. If the counter punching isn't enough and they keep moving forward, then I will start throwing long knees to cause more of a threat, which I'll discuss again more in the next tactic. But for now, here are some failed attempts. Tactic 6. Intercepting counters. Try to time an attack as your opponent moves into range. We can throw the lead teep to the body, the lead teep to the thigh, the lead roundhouse kick to the body, long knees to the body, and even a hip sweep. It's very important to understand your range. Knowing how long your weapons are, you'll be able to decide which attack to use. Starting with the longest weapon, the lead teep to the body. Assuming you are on the outside, try to throw it before your opponent steps into punch or at the same time. If you let them step into punch and then try to teep, you'll be jammed up and get potentially pushed back from your opponent's body weight moving forward. The second longest weapon is the lead teep to the thigh, which requires you to be a little closer as you need to reach down to the thigh, but I like to mix it up because everyone expects the body teep and much less to the thigh. The third longest weapon is the lead roundhouse kick, which is the best to throw after or at the same time your opponent throws a punch. If you throw it after the punch is thrown, then of course you want to parry the punch first and then into the kick. Most likely you would have to bend your kicking leg, squeezing that shin across the body to make it fit. So you'll need to adjust the length of your kicking leg. From this distance, I also like stepping in with the hip sweep. I need to be close enough that I can step my rear leg behind my opponent's rear leg, but not so close that I don't have enough space to generate momentum and power into the sweep. Then we got the long knee. Your long knee should be as long as your jab if you really put your hips into it. So if your lead hand touches and your opponent moves another inch forward, then launch that long knee. It will be the perfect distance to create maximum power. Knees in general are also way easier to land against shorter opponents for obvious reasons. The taller they are, the harder it is for your knee to reach the body without accidentally kneeing them in the groin. And last tactic, tactic 7. Throw a lot of high kicks, and all types of high kicks. If your opponent is shorter, it should be easy to throw high kicks for you, assuming you have decent flexibility. Take this opportunity to practice your high kicks on shorter opponents. High kicks are great because they are powerful and dangerous, and if you land one, there is a good chance you can rock your opponent, if not knock them out. High kicks are also harder to catch and get swept, and it's also less likely that your opponent blocks by checking, which hurts a lot if you kick their knee or shin. I don't throw these fancy kicks like spinning heel kicks or crescent kicks often because I'm not great at them, but I am able to pull them off sometimes because my opponents here are shorter, making it easier. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please support this channel by liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and turning on that notification button. See you next time.